Well, hello, my friends. Hi, Beth. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am very excited. And today we're going to talk about how to challenge yourself in the studio. We're going to kind of share some of the things that you do to challenge yourself, some of the things that I like to do also once in a while to challenge myself also, with the work that we do. But before we do that, how are you doing?
I've been enjoying this Texas heat out in the river, out in the woods. It's beautiful here. I'm getting so much nature in, so that's great. That's great for me. What about you?
Excellent. It's been fun here. Well, Chicago right now is hot in the summer, so it's been hot and humid. Probably, pretty much like more south of the United States. So it's been good. I enjoy that. I enjoy going out and doing some things outdoor because here the summer is very short. Winter will be coming in before you know it. So trying to do that. But it's great to connect with you again, like every Wednesday. Chicago and Texas, we connect together. In Texas we connect and we have these awesome conversations or whatever we may be at. So let's talk about how to challenge ourselves in the studio, because something that I know happens often and is that once you've been doing work of a certain kind or style or thing for a while, and it could be years where you've been working on something specific, it could become so familiar to us that we can continue working and working, but really we're not challenging ourselves, right? Where it becomes almost repetitive in a way, or it could become also not as exciting. So maybe we can talk about some of the strategies that our friends here watching and us we can do to keep challenging our creative side when we walk in the studio and we are ready to approach the next sculpture or the next canvas or the next photograph or the next whatever it may be. So I have a few things I would like to share, and I know, Beth, that you probably have also some things that you would like to share. So how do you like that topic?
I think it's a great topic. We, as artists, I think, do our best work when we are in a place of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And if we can create that environment around us, even if that means, going into our studio and doing something different than we're used to, I think the way that we problem solve through that process is what makes our creativity shine. So yeah, let's talk about
I
this.
love that. All right, so let's start. For example, one of the things that you can do is something that I have done. So I'll be talking from my experience too, things that I have tried. Changing just the size in which you normally work. So as artists, we all kind of have a certain kind of thing that is kind of familiar to us, and we like to work with. We feel that that's kind of our place. For me, I love making larger work. It is for me a lot easier to do a giant painting than do a small 8x10 one, right? Even though the size is small, there's something about the larger one that I really enjoy, that I have, I feel comfortable in that space. So for a while, for a few years, I did a lot of large work, and then of course, where to keep it is one of those things that you start coming out like, where am I going to keep all this work? And also, even though you're selling it, it still takes time because larger pieces require a lot of space, and not everybody has the space or that kind of money for a large piece. So for example, I started to push myself to also work small, and not to respond to a marketing need, but rather to respond to a challenge of like, well, I could have as an offer also a small work and medium size, but also as a personal challenge, how do I transfer this, energy that I get on the larger work into a small scale? And over the years that I've been doing that process, I now have come to really enjoy that. So that's kind of like one of the things that I recommend, something that I have done, and it always works. It just makes you think in a different way.
Yeah, I've done that too, where I've worked really small and I've worked really large. And what I have found for myself through that process is I like to do a lot of my mark making and sort of experimentation on the smaller pieces, because it feels almost like I'm just making process art that then what I find through that, well, I will adapt to a larger piece. So I have found it really beneficial for me to work small and then work big, because I'm like you, I love working big. As you can see behind me, like
Yeah.
is like 8 feet by 10 feet. And it's because I'm able to put my whole body into
Right, right.
to the work and in the process. I think that's really fun. But Yeah, changing the size up, even changing the materials up too,
Right.
can be sort of a fun way to explore your process.
Right. And this is something that I discovered, for example, you talk about changing the materials that I discovered one day. I was working and I really wanted to get a certain texture and feel on the paint. I work with acrylic for the most part. And I found on the floor, I had the lid covered of my gesso bucket that was empty. So I grabbed the lid and I started rubbing it in circles and it just started to create these beautiful markings. And
Oh.
for years, I used that in many of my paintings. And you know how sometimes, like you said, looking for that something else that is not your typical, brush. It can give you some different variations of results, by just changing, your techniques and your tools that you have at your disposal, and also your color, your color palette. I think we all have like certain color palettes that we feel comfortable with. For me, it's the warm palette.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at my whole trajectory of hundreds of paintings, you will find just a few that have blue. And blue is one of those colors, or green. Green, more than blue, but blue is one of those colors that I don't know why I push against. So sometimes, kind of going into that direction where it's not your normal typical palette can also help.
Yes, I like blues, as you can see,
Yeah.
and I have done some work with reds before, and I love colorful things in general. So
Mhm.
I'm all about like just more color. But what I have found that has worked best for me is really trying to limit my color palette and
Right.
push the variations between, like, say I just choose two or three colors and then a white, and then how can I take it from there?
Right, exactly. Yeah, if you're a colorful, kind of in the way you're working, kind of doing a reverse of synchronizing to something very small, or vice versa. If you're technically normally paint with two or three different variations, now expanding to something larger. Yeah, those things kind of help us to stretch our imagination and help our way
Mhm.
of working. Another one that I have found to be very inspiring when I need to stretch myself as an artist is collaborating with somebody who does different work that you do and even different medium.
Mm,
um, because it's easier sometimes to collaborate with somebody who does something similar to you, and that's why you're collaborating. But sometimes working with somebody who is a different discipline or a different way of making or a different material totally changes your way of working. I did a collaboration a couple of years ago with a glass artist, and I love glass. I've never done glass myself, and so we did a collaboration. We created a series of glass plates with some of my imagery, and she created beautiful plates, but they're not, it wasn't like my picture printed on the glass, like,
mm.
but rather an actual collaboration where I created some shapes of my figures and then she fused them together into becoming this glass, and we work with colors. So it was really interesting, and it really pushed me to kind of see my work differently, and also try things that I had never tried before.
Yeah, I've done that too, where I've collaborated with other artists, and it's been so much fun to kind of like see, well, maybe am more into illustration or collage or adding those elements to the work, where I had a canvas and she had a canvas,
Yeah.
and we started both with illustration, and then we switched it, and then we finished it with collage. So she finished my piece and I finished her piece, and
Very
so
cool.
they
Kind of
came
going
out
back and
really
forth.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was some of my favorite collaborative work that I've done. You just never know what'll happen when you ask an artist to just kind of explore their process with you and just see
Right.
where your minds come together, and it's a lot of fun. So it's like, how can you not make great work?
Exactly. No, totally. All right. So I'll share one last one and then we'll wrap it up. Um, and I think this one, is very close to you, Beth, because you recently moved to a brand new location, right? Where you have been working for a long time. So sometimes, changing your workplace or the time in which you typically work or just your surrounding environment will also spark new ways in which you look at your work. Even just the lighting difference between one room in another or one studio in another, daytime versus nighttime, and things like that totally changes your perspective. And I know you just went through that because you moved from Nashville, which you had been there for, I don't know, maybe you can share how many years were you there, and now moving to a new location.
Well,
12 years, there you go. It's quite a bit. So how now in a whole new environment, I always say that the sunshine looks different in different parts of the world. So I'm sure that you are now in the southern part of the United States also, and also in a more open nature surrounding area versus in the city, it has changed your approach to art making.
definitely has. I've been using photography more and really playing with the light because I am so connected to nature and following the sun every day. And so I'm learning about like how it's hitting on different trees or rocks, or, you know, it's just like I'm watching and observing like really carefully. And I think that's going to help with some of my art making. Like I've been thinking about doing some watercolor and some, you know, graphite on paper and drawing. And so I love painting, and I'm an abstract painter, but I mean, I started with drawing, and I would love to kind of revisit that. Like when I was living in Texas, I started drawing graphite on paper like 20 years ago. And so maybe I should revisit that. And I think it's kind of cool how you feel like you come full circle sometimes with.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that would be a great place to end it, because that's another way in which you can also reinvigorate your, you know, your studio practice by going back again to your early works, and
Mm-hmm.
even maybe do a new rendition of something that you did early, which is great too. So thank you so much, Beth. I think that was pretty fun sharing with you some of these. So where can our friends find you on social media and on your website?
You guys can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Beth English, and I'm bethenglish.com. And what about you, Sergio?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Sergio Gomez Art, and on the web at sergiogomezonline.com. And as usual, please let us know what you think. If you have specific things that you do in your studio, or how you continue to reinvigorate your studio life, let us know. We would love to hear, and we will add them and try them also ourselves. So please share so more artists can also benefit from this conversation. Have a great day, my friends. Bye, Beth.
Bye.